So let's talk about the tactics of counting cards. And we're going to specifically explore this tactic as it relates to Talisman, one of my favorite board games. And in illustrating this concept with Talisman, depending on the type of board game, if it is extremely card driven, plus your advanced knowledge, it's easy to map out, understand, and apply for other games. Now, Talisman is essentially this fusion of roll a d6 and move, and depending on your character, there might be some other possible movement options, utilization of spells or special abilities. You land on a space where you follow instructions to draw adventure cards. And these adventure cards might be a skill check, a magic object, a monster to fight, an event. They help advance your character, tell the story, and propel the game. Layered over this is the fact that Talisman is a game against a timer. You and the other players, each taking the role of a character, are looking to make your way to the center of the gaming table where you have the crown of command, to seize the crown of command and essentially blast all the other players. So from that perspective, while it is a role-playing-esque game and a fantasy-based game and an exploration game, it's a cutthroat game, and you are actively trying to prevent the other players from gaining advantage as you move towards the center of the table. So understanding what cards are in the deck and when they may come up is very, very important. Now, if it's the first time that you're playing the game, there's the element of exploration. You don't really know what cards are in the deck. You haven't encountered them. And likewise, Talisman has so many amazing expansions. The more expansions that you play, the more cards that get cycled into this adventure deck, and the chances of encountering certain cards, if you're aware of them, really becomes less, because you're essentially expanding the deck with lots and lots of other events and monsters and magical objects and spells. We're going to explore the perspective from the base game. Now, normally, that's kind of the lead in the setup. Normally, when I play Talisman, I'm all in. We've got the main board, we've got the 4 realms, we've got the sideboards, we've got the Ratways and the Warrens. We're all in. We're with the Reaper, we're with the Firelands, all the characters. It's you want to talk about real estate on the gaming table. It's massive. But there are times where I just go with the core set, the Black Library core set. And of course, you can enjoy the game tremendously just with the core. The core is a much quicker play, and usually I bring it along as a game to play at gaming events, or usually after Dungeons and Dragons when we're kind of winding down and we just want to kind of roll some dice and wait for the effects to wear off. We'll play some Talisman. In the core, the adventure deck is very, very sizable, but it's manageable. I'm aware of certain cards that are in there. And in this last game, we randomly draw characters. I drew the Warrior, an excellent character. My plan was basically to rack up the gold as quickly as I can, utilize that gold to purchase weapons and armor for the stat boost, have enough gold to make it to the mid realm, and heal up as necessary to make the run for the Crown of Command. So it was kind of a gold-based strategy. I got hit with the Toad, dropped all my gold. I've got the Druid basically looting me. I've got the Thief looting me. So I'm like, all right, it's now a number of turns in, and I don't have the time, being a game where we're competing against each other, to try and grab all that gold. So I'm like, all right, we're going to just keep playing. I'm going to try and get some objects. I got some good objects. I got hit by the Raiders. And this is the Black Library edition. The Raiders steal all your gear. This is not modified Baby Cakes Fantasy Flight edition. They stole all my gear and stashed it. So at the Oasis, now I got to try and get there before everyone else does. 2 examples of understanding where the deck is. So we're going to look at 2 cards. 1 magic object, 1 event. So minor spoilers. One of the worst things that you can get hit with in the core are the Raiders. They're just that. You're checking out the realm, Raiders hit you, they steal all your gear, they drop it off at the Oasis. The card can hit you anywhere. If you're in the outer realm, now you got to cross through the Sentinel. Well, you just lost gear, or you got to find another way. And if you're in the inner realm, then you have to kind of make your way quickly there. And of course, if you've got a lot of great gear, everybody else is trying to get there too to steal your gear. This card is a pain. Likewise, there's a magic object, one of the 3 more powerful objects in the base game. I'm just going to talk about one, navigating the spoilers. The Rune Sword. It allows you essentially to just farm life and gain life as you go. So naturally, you grab the Rune Sword, one that makes you godlike, 2 that puts a target on your back. That's a tactica for another time. At the start of the game, you know, hey, the Rune Sword is in there somewhere. The Raiders are in there somewhere. The more powerful monsters to fight, dragons and giants, they are in there somewhere, mixed in that deck. Now, what are the odds of drawing the Raiders or the Rune Sword on the first card or at the top of the deck? That's for mathematics to figure out. But generally speaking, at the beginning of the game, I don't have any gear. I don't have anything. If I get hit by the Raiders, it's no big deal. If we move through the game, I need to be aware as best I can, what cards do I know and have they come into play yet? As we move into the game mid-game, I've got some followers, I've got some gold, I've got a couple of choice magic objects, maybe some consumables. I'm in a good place. If the Raiders have not been hit yet, well, the deck is burned halfway through, or possibly even more. I want to be very, very conservative, seeing where I can land. Now, being a D6 roll and move type game, I might not be able to prevent myself from landing on a space to draw a card, but if I have the option to do so, then perhaps I want to do that. Often there's spaces where based on your alignment, nothing will happen. Maybe I want to try and move on those spaces. Yes, I'm burning a turn, I'm not gaining, but I'm keeping what I have. So being aware of when and where that might pop up. Similar with the Rune Sword. If it hasn't been in play yet, do I still want to really aggressively try and farm objects? Or early on, if it's come into play, at that point, I know it's out. Do I want to aggressively go for it and try to thump on another player and steal it from them? Or do I want to use that to my advantage, knowing that most of the other players are going to try and go for that, but there's 2 other potentially powerful items in the deck. So maybe I want to try and farm them at spaces where you draw 2 or maybe 3 cards to try and burn and cycle through the deck. Likewise, understanding that early on in the game, if I draw a dragon or a giant, I'll roll a D6. I'm probably not going to beat them. I've lost a life, but I'm still at full life. Mid-game, when I've got some gear and I've got some stuff, do I want to draw the dragon then? I might be able to beat him, but if not, I'll lose a life. Now I need to be fully healed up to make my run for the Crown of Command, just to be conservative, to be safe. I now need to go to the doctor or cast a healing spell that maybe I was banking from that perspective, burning a turn to do that. So I can't control the random. Well, there's a way to draw a card and replace it through spells or magic objects. But for the most part, I can't control the random, but I can be aware based on the gear, based on the other players, and based on what I have, and ask myself, what is still in play? And what are the odds of it coming out as the deck gets burned smaller and smaller and smaller? It increases in the case of the Raiders more and more and more and more. And likewise, what gear do I have? If I get hit by the Raiders, is it going to hurt me? Or the opposite, if we're burning through the deck and it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and I really don't have that great a gear. So if I get hit by the Raiders, it's a loss, but I'm not really going to lose anything or much of anything. You might think, well, hey, this is the time to get hit by it. No, maybe I want to land on some spaces where I'll try to boost a stat or not draw an adventure card, because if the other 2 players or the other players in the game are jacked up and flush with gear, the chances are they're going to draw the Raiders on the next couple of pulls. I want them to get hit by it. So maybe the meta is I position myself in the inner realm. I start camping there. I hang out there. So if they get hit by the Raiders, stuff gets dropped off at the Oasis. I then park it, grab it, and instant power level up from that perspective. So this is very meta gaming. This is very much reading into it with an understanding of I'm playing competitively and I'm aware of the game, having played it a number of times. In theory, what cards are in the deck. And this works great in the base game, but admittedly, as you start adding on expansions that dilute the primary deck, the Raiders are still in there. The Rune Sword is still in there. The Orb is still in there. The Spellbook is still in there. The Belt of Strength is still in there. But it's vastly, vastly diluted with lots and lots of other really good stuff and mediocre stuff and not so great stuff and events. But understanding the counting or the remembering of cards and the size of the deck is an important meta strategy if you are playing a card-based engine that is competitive.